Ladies and gentlemen, I have some breaking news here. The Boy Scouts of America files for bankruptcy. The Boy Scouts of America has filed for bankruptcy, a sign of a century old organization's financial instability as it faces some 300 lawsuits from men who said they were sexually abused as scouts. The Boy Scouts has been exploring the possibility of bankruptcy since at least December 2018, when the group hired a law firm for a possible Chapter 11 filing. Amid the high profile sexual abuse scandals in the organization, from the Catholic Church to the USA Gymnastics, some states have changed their laws to allow more time for victims of sexual abuse to sue their perpetrators. That has brought a wave of new lawsuits from victims whose cases were prevented previously by statutes of limitations. For years, organizations like the Boy Scouts counted on these laws to protect them, says Paul Mones, an attorney in the Los Angeles location who is representing many men who are suing the Boy Scouts. Now that these laws are not there, and the Boy Scouts have fallen under their own weight of these abuse allegations and the potential cases that will be filed. In a statement to NPR, prior to filing for bankruptcy, the Boy Scouts of America said it was exploring all options available so we can live up to our social and moral responsibility to equitably compensate victims who suffered abuse during their time in scouting, while ensuring that we carry on our mission to serve youth, families, and local communities through our programs. No decisions have been made, and we continue to fully meet our financial obligations to our vendors, creditors, and other stakeholders. The Boy Scouts' potential liability is large. Mones points to just one case he won in Portland, Oregon in 2010, where the judgment against the organization was nearly $20 million. For many years, the Boy Scouts had insurance that would cover them against sexual abuse claims. But in recent years, those carriers have been withdrawing coverage, arguing that the Boy Scouts knew about the abuse and didn't tell their insurance companies. This has left the Boy Scouts with the prospect of having to fund any litigation and settlements themselves. The Boy Scouts' most recent tax filing shows total revenue of more than $285 million. With significant land holdings across the U.S., the organization's assets in 2018 totaled $1.4 billion. The national organization may hope that its bankruptcy filing will shield the assets of its local councils, similar to how Catholic dioceses were able to protect their properties and parishes from claims. Interesting. Local Boy Scout councils and other affiliated nonprofits separately hold $3.3 billion in assets, the Wall Street Journal reported last month. Mones says this case could be a warning for any organization that hasn't properly reckoned with reports of abuse. If the largest youth organization by far in the United States can be crippled under the weight of doing nothing about their sexual abuse allegations and covering the problem up, I think it's a warning shot across the bow to all churches and youth organizations and schools that have this problem and don't act proactively to resolve it, he says. Okay, so I have an audio that I'm going to play here. Just give me a second here and I'll get it going.
The Boy Scouts of America filed for bankruptcy overnight in federal court in Delaware. The reason? Roughly 300 lawsuits from former Boy Scouts who say they were sexually assaulted by their troop leaders. The organization is facing the prospect of massive liability. This Chapter 11 filing by the organization is an attempt to protect the valuable land assets held by the independent local Boy Scout councils. From Dallas, NPR's Wade Goodwin has more.
The problem of troop leaders sexually assaulting scouts has plagued the Boy Scouts of America for decades. In 2010, plaintiff's lawyer Paul Mones won a signature case in Portland, Oregon, that not only resulted in a nearly $20 million verdict for his sexually abused client, but caused the public release of what became known as the perversion files. It was a secret Boy Scouts of America list of troop leaders who'd sexually abused their scouts.
The purpose was to try to prevent these scout leaders from re-enlisting, but the problem is they never really told any of the scouts about it. When scout leaders were found out, they were allowed to resign. Boy Scouts had a policy of not calling law enforcement about it until very, very recently. In fact, in my trial, one of the executives was asked about when did you first recognize the problem of sexual abuse in scouting, and the response was, what do you mean by the word problem?
Since that trial, hundreds of men, former scouts, have come forward to say they too were abused, and the Boy Scouts insurance companies have refused to pay any claims, saying the Boy Scouts of America knew they had an epidemic of sexual abuse but hid it from their insurers. In a statement to NPR, the BSA said, "The Boy Scouts of America is working with experts and exploring all options available so we can live up to our social and moral responsibility to equitably compensate victims who suffered abuse during their time in scouting, while also ensuring that we carry out our mission to serve youth, families, and local communities through our programs." The national BSA has $1.4 billion in assets, while the independent local councils have around $3.3 billion. Much of the valuable assets are prime real estate, beautiful camps scattered throughout the country. Current Michigan Eagle Scout Will Ellsworth is heartbroken about the sexual assault allegations, but the 17-year-old urges the country not to turn its back on scouting.
The Boy Scouts as an organization has been through quite a lot in terms of allegations of sexual abuse. They're kind of dealing with those consequences right now. But I wish more people would see the real power that this organization has for youth and for teaching values that carry people throughout the rest of their lives.
Since Theodore Roosevelt, every U.S. president has been named honorary president of the Boy Scouts of America. The institution is woven into the cultural fabric of the country. The organization's desire to protect its reputation at the expense of all other considerations has jeopardized everything it stands for and put its very future at risk. Wade Goodwin, NPR News, Dallas.
And now,
as a former scout leader, I got this email this morning because I guess I'm still on their scouting alumni, and I want to go ahead and I want to read this. It's the title of it is called "An Important Update from the Boy Scouts of America." Dear scouting alumni, today the National Organization of the Boy Scouts of America filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy to achieve two key objectives: equitably compensate victims who were harmed during their time in scouting, and to continue to carry on scouting's mission for years to come. We are outraged that there have been times when individuals took advantage of our programs to abuse innocent children, and sincerely apologize to anyone who was harmed during that time in scouting. We believe victims, we support them. We provide counseling by a provider of their choice, and we encourage them to come forward. We believe that all victims should receive our support and compensation, and we have taken decisive action to make that possible. Our plan is to use this Chapter 11 process to create a trust that will provide equitable compensation to these individuals. Please know that we have worked consistently over many years to implement multi-layered policies to keep kids safe. From mandatory youth protection training and background checks for all volunteers and staff, to policies that prohibit one-on-one interactions between youth and adults and require that any suspected abuse is reported to law enforcement. Our volunteers and employees take youth protection extremely seriously and do their part to keep kids safe. While the word bankruptcy can be intimidating, it is important to know that scouting programs will continue. This means that regular unit meetings, activities, district and council events, other scouting adventures, and countless service projects will take place as usual. As we go through this process, we want our scouting alumni to know the following. Scouting is safer now than ever before. Approximately 90% of the pending and asserted abuse claims against the BSA related to abuse that occurred more than 30 years ago. As someone close to scouting, you know the safety of children in our programs is BSA's absolute top priority. Scouting continues. Scouting programs will continue to serve youth, families, and local communities through this process and for many years to come. Just last year, communities across the country benefited from more than 13 million scouting service hours, and young men and women earned more than 1.7 merit badges that represent skills that will help them succeed throughout their lives. Studies prove, and parents agree, that scouting helps young people become more kind, helpful, and prepared for life, as long as those values remain important to our society. Scouting will continue to be invaluable to our nation's youth. Local councils have not filed for bankruptcy. Local councils are legally separate, distinct, and financially independent from the national organization. We know that you have many questions about these issues and things you have seen in the news. We have posted information about the national organization's restructuring at www.bsarestructuring.org. This site includes a helpful resources page where you can find a short video explaining what Chapter 11 means for scouting and an FAQ to address many of your questions as possible. The site also includes a milestones page, which will be your best source for latest updates throughout this process. If these resources don't answer your questions, please feel free to reach out to us through member care at area code 972-580-2489 or myscouting@scouting.org. Thank you for your continued support of the mission. Yours in Scouting, Jim Turley, who is the National Chair, Ellie Morrison, who is the National Commissioner, and Roger Mosby, who is the President and CEO of Boy Scouts of America. Now, I just want to talk a little bit and explain personally how I got involved in scouting. If anybody in the black community knows, some of us have a Joseph Jackson for a father. and I say that in a laughable way because for those who don't know who Joseph Jackson is, that is Michael Jackson's father. And Michael Jackson's father was known to push his kids to great success in the Jackson 5 and also for Michael and LaToya and Janet and Rebe and Jermaine and whoever else went out and branched out and did their solo thing. Joseph Jackson had a hand. Sometimes he could be harsh, he could be rough, but at the end of the day, he was their daddy. I had that dad that just pushed my siblings and I to great success, to want to do great things, and so we all had to go through the scouting tradition. And he was also our He was also when we had Cub Scout, he was our Cub master. When we were in Boy Scouts, he was our Scout master. As a matter of fact, he went back and got his PhD in scouting, which I didn't even know they had. But like I said, that was something that he wanted to do. By the time I got to fourth grade, I remember there's this guy by the name of Shane Corville, and Shane Corville was in 4-H. And so Shane had talked about showing rabbits and showing some other animals or whatnot at a livestock show. So I was really curious, and I was like, okay, cool. This is a way for me to kind of get away from my dad and get away from the Cub Scouts, because that wasn't something that I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was run around with the cats in the group and just burn off a lot of energy and stuff like that. Every time we would have a raffle for a bicycle, I didn't even know that the bicycle wasn't even bought. It was just a prop up display. I think my dad had borrowed it from Augustine's Family Market or something like that. They let him borrow the bike. And so because I didn't win the bike, I would cry and didn't understand the whole thing was just rigged up. So I got picked and teased on for being a crybaby. So, it is what it is. So I decided that I was just in fourth grade, I was just fed up with scouting and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I decided to go over to 4-H. And I remember one day we had a parade and my dad was standing on at the end of the parade, and I guess he was taking mental notes like a Joseph Jackson, Michael Jackson's dad manager, So he was like, okay, yeah, I see what he's doing. He's trying to move his little ass over to 4-H. So then he comes over to the 4-H side, and it's like, okay, now this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna start getting involved in these rabbit shows. We're gonna start getting involved in a whole lot of this and that, and it was pretty good. Like I said, I got a lot of blue ribbons. Got a lot of first place, second place. Again, like I say, if you haven't seen the Jackson's The American Dream, I encourage you to go see that movie. The reason why I say that is because I think about that part in the movie where the Jacksons, the Jackson 5 family had got into a talent show and they wind up winning second place. And the second place prize, let me back up here. The first place prize, I believe, was like a recording contract in a studio. And then the second place prize was a color TV. Now, mind you, this is probably around 1964, 1965. And this was before they signed to Motown. So the Jacksons came in. The Jackson family came in second place, and so as soon as they found out, Joseph had the boys pack up all their stuff, get in the van, and leave. And so the brother's like, wait, you're not gonna take your color TV? And so what Joseph did when they got back home, he basically just made them practice even harder. And I think it was Michael or Marlon, one of the two, had said in the movie, it's like, man, we sure would have been good with that color TV. And so Joseph was like, we don't accept second best. We don't accept second place. Second place is like saying we're going to be last place. So the reason why I say that is because my dad pushed and pushed and pushed, and the rewards paid off. When I was in seventh grade, I wind up going and taking trips to Astroworld, and it was a very like I say, it was a very beautiful experience, a very great experience. And I'll never forget the first time I went to short course, LSU short course, 4-H LSU short course. And I actually had a crush on this. I had a chick. I had a crush on this chick, black chick, when I was there, but she had a boyfriend. And I think for the short course experience, it was beautiful because it gave me a chance to really be me being a country boy, being in the city, and being in a place where I could just be outside of the country. And here it is, I'm talking to this beautiful sister, beautiful black chick from West Baton Rouge Parish, and she inspired me. She was a couple years older than me. I want to say she was she was 2 years. No, she was 3 years older than me. Yeah, she's 3 years older than me, and she inspired me to really go back to 4-H short course. Her and another sister that was from East Feliciana Parish. They inspired me to want to go back to 4-H short course. And so the next year I did go back, and the one chick from West Baton Rouge, it was her last year because she was a senior in high school. And she was graduating, and she was going to be going off to college at Grambling. And so I just made sure to spend as much time as I could, just hanging out with her and all that stuff, because I didn't think I was going to see her again until eventually I had wound up going to Southern University in 1997. And she wound up going to Grambling and wound up being Miss Grambling. But it was the beautiful sisters that really inspired me to want to go back to 4-H short course. But so fast forward to my adulthood, when I got married and I had my son. I was trying to get my son involved into Cub Scouts. And so I had signed up for our local pack here in the Manassas area. And around this time, the whole scouting program had changed. And it because I remember back in the day, what a lot of parents would do is a lot of parents would look at the scouting program as if it was a daycare center. They would just drop their kids off. They drop them off to the pavilion or to the rec center or whatnot, and they would leave, and they'd come back in 30, 45 minutes to an hour later to pick their kids up. So now what the scouting program was doing in recent years is they were requiring the parents to be more accountable at the den meetings, at the banquets, at the programs. So basically what that meant was like, you weren't going to just drop your kid off and just roll out like, okay, deuces, I'll be back in about an hour. No, you had to be responsible and accountable for everything that your kid was doing. So what they were doing is they would have activities over in the den meetings, and they would have that one-on-one where the parents assisted the den leaders, they assisted the Cub Masters. Now, the problem with my group is I had a bunch of hyperactive ass kids, and you had to tell these jokers like 20 million times, stop running around the location where we were we were having the den meetings at, then there was a stage that was there, and the first thing the kid wanted to do, they want to jump on the stage, and they wanted to act like they were Captain Hook or somebody like that, and you had to tell them a million times, get off the stage. And then you actually had them badass little kids that just love to test you. Like, you ain't gonna do nothing to me. I'm gonna tell my mama. I'm gonna tell my daddy. And then after a while, I just sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I put my child into this program, and I didn't want to be a den leader. I didn't want to have to deal with the pressures of having to take off of work, because I was working at the Pentagon at the time. I didn't want to have to deal with the pressures of trying to plan activities, plan lessons. None of the parents are stepping up and trying to do anything. Thank God for the McDougals, and thank God for Brian McDougall. That he was able to kind of come in and help me out. But eventually, his family moved to a different unit, which and their unit was located at their church, so it was much easier for them and much convenient for them. So I lost a good leader who could help me out and really kind of take a lot of the burden off of my shoulders. So eventually, long story short, I just had to walk away from it. It was just too much. It was too much trying to juggle family life, and trying to help the boys out. And again, it was just that thing of like, if your kids are rowdy, and my kid is rowdy, and your kids won't listen to me and they won't pay attention, what makes you think that me telling them to stop doing this, or telling them to, hey, like, pay attention, stop talking, stop running around the building, what makes you think that's going to do a hill of good? And I just sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I can discipline my child. I can speak truth into my child's life. If somebody else's child don't take the words of wisdom, and they don't take the moral compass and the standards that I'm trying to provide for them, that's their child. But my child, I have every right in the world to make him great. I have every right in the world to do what I have to do for him. So eventually I walked away. My son wasn't happy with scouting. We would go to the Pinewood Derby races, and his car needed a lot of work, and he would cry when he would lose, and he didn't understand, it was lessons to be learned from that. You would take him on camping trips, and he would be scared and terrified of bugs. And I just realized that as a parent, that the Most High wants me to spend time with my child. The Bible says that train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they get old, they won't depart from it. And trust me, I'm not knocking 4-H. I'm not knocking scouting. I just realized that when you have a hyperactive autistic child that I have, who really needs one-on-one hands-on training with things in life, this is what a lot of our boys need. We really need our fathers to come in and show us strength, to show us courage, to show us integrity, to show us character, to show us who we really are. And I think what happens is, between the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s, and 80s and 90s and so on, we as families have gotten so caught up with the American dream of having the house, the two cars and two garage in a 2-car garage. We've been so focused on trying to put our kids through school, even if we have to bite the bullet and take out a student loan. We've been caught up with everything, and this is what and what happens is we go push our kids in these activities such as scouting, such as Girl Scouts, such as the Boys and Girls Club. We go and we put them in these things. We drop them off. We go to Starbucks. We go doodle on our laptops. We go play Candy Crush, and then we come home and we watch TV. We shove an iPad in front of their face. We shove a Nintendo Switch in front of their face, and we think, wow, we're really a perfect family. When we're really kind of like the Simpsons on Fox. So I had to walk away from scouting. My family needed me. My family, my wife, my kids, they remind me of that song by the Carpenters, I Won't Last a Day Without You. My family doesn't have the skills to make it without me. If I'm gone for 5 minutes, they're worrying about me. This is a part of the curses of true Israel in Deuteronomy 28. The clingy wife, the overbearing wife. But when we return back to the Most High, when we return back and we follow his laws, statutes, and commandments, and we start building up our people will be blessed. The wife and the kids will gain confidence within themselves. When the men begin to rise up and we begin to stand up and take our leadership for who we are in the Most High, within our homes, within our communities. This is what the world is waiting for. Scripture saying the earth is groaning and travailing for the manifest presence of the sons of the Most High Yah to stand up and be counted for. I'm sorry that this is happening to the Boy Scouts of America. And really the title of this broadcast is going to be America's Fall, America's Decline. And it started with 9/11 and now it's gaining momentum. You have the coronavirus going on. You've got so much going on right now. The Boy Scouts of America filing bankruptcy is just another nail in the coffin of death in Babylon. There are times that I actually sit here and I actually think, and I was like, sometimes I really want to go back to it. Sometimes I want to take my son, but I feel like that, you know, when you look at biblical prophecy and you look at when it talks about the children of Israel going into the wilderness, this is the reason why even in the beginning, before I even came into the truth, I always wanted my son to be in scouting because I wanted to teach him one thing, and that one thing is the art of survival. I wanted to teach him how to use a knife, how to build a fire, how to make adequate, proper shelter, because you're not going to find these things in the church. What you're going to find in the church, what you're going to find in Christianity is they're going to tell you one sweet day, you know, Jesus is going to come back on the clouds and he's going to take everybody up and they're going to go back to heaven. And that's not even what scripture talks about. And that's for another video, that for another day. But you don't find a rapture in the Bible. You've been hoodwinked, you've been bamboozled, and you've been lied to. But I wanted to teach my son the art of survival, how to survive, how to take care of yourself. And this is something that true Israel, we as a people are going to have to do. We're going to have to work with our brothers and sisters, even if these programs collapse and crumble. But ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for being long-winded. I just had to do this one here. And when I saw the news this morning, it kind of made me sad. But just like the death of Sears, this thing is going to continue to keep going on in America. The Most High is doing a new thing in this world. And he don't need our government programs. He don't need any form of government in what he's trying to do. That's why he tells you in Revelations, come out of her, my people. Come out of Babylon. Come out of Egypt. Come out of Rome. Come out of that thinking, that stinking thinking. Come out of their philosophies. Come out of their mindset. Come out of everything. But please let me know what you think. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the bell to get the notifications. And I will see you on the next video. Salama.